All right, Owls. This is Mr. O with the first flip notes of the second quarter, which is going to be reproduction of flowers. Today in class, we went over the individual parts of flowers and generalized their functions, except for a couple of them. And this notes should be pretty short, but in your TOC, this is going to be page number 4. This is plant parts and functions flip notes. 6L11 is just the number that the state says you need to learn in 6th grade. First, we're going to generalize the 3 parts of a flower that are male. The first is the overall, the stamen, which means the entire male reproductive part of the flower is called the stamen. It has 2 parts to it. The first is the anther and the second is the filament. We talked about what the anther and the filament do in class today, but then we never talked about the general function of them, which is to produce and distribute pollen, which is basically pollination. So the male's reproductive part of a flower's general purpose is for pollination. Then we have female parts of a flower. Just like the male, then the stamen is the inclusion of all parts. For the female, the inclusion of all parts would be called the pistil. And the pistil has several parts. The first is the stigma, the second is the style, the third is the ovary, and the fourth is the ovule. We talked about those A through D's purpose in class today, but we never really talked about the general purpose, which is to fertilize the ovules to become fruit, vegetable, or a flower. So basically, the female's job is fertilization. Let's define pollination for you. In your notes, you're going to fill out the pollination as the process of pollen being given off, which is distributed or spread to the female parts of a flower. If pollen is just given off, it's not pollination until it gets to the female parts of the flower. Once it connects to the female parts of a flower, pollination has happened. Fertilization happens after pollination has happened, and this is when the pollen goes through the process to the ovary, growing into a fruit or vegetable. So fertilization happens when that pollen is actually used to fertilize the ovary to become the next fruit, vegetable for the plant or seed. And then there's a little statement that in the end that says the length of night or dark period controls flowering, meaning depending on how long or short this period of time is, we'll figure out how much or how little a plant will flower. That's the end of these notes. We'll talk about them in class tomorrow.